Hello friends and welcome back to the channel. In this episode, we'll make some garlic pull-apart bread. This is such simple bread to make and the result is amazing. Each of the little segments is easy to pull off and they're all saturated with garlic and butter. You could even mix some cheese in between. That would make it even more amazing. But this is great as it is. And as always, you'll find a full detailed recipe down in the description box with metric and imperial units. So first up, let's see what equipment we need. Use a bowl, temperature probe, scales, a dough scraper, and a loaf tin. If you have a thick solid tray or cast iron skillet, that would come in handy. But if you don't, it'll work anyway, it's fine. Now on to the ingredients. You'll need some strong white bread flour, milk, yeast, salt, sugar, and some butter. That's for the dough. Then for the garlic butter, we'll need some more butter, garlic, salt, and parsley. Making the garlic butter is super simple. Melt your butter. It doesn't have to be hot, just runny. Add the salt, add the garlic and the parsley, and give it all a good mix. Now I love garlic, so I used quite a lot. Feel free to reduce the amount in the recipe if you want to. Now before we start, I know my kitchen is around 22 degrees Celsius, so my milk to be around 7, so I use it from the fridge. Now let's begin. Get the bowl, add your milk, add the yeast, salt, and the sugar. Then grab a spatula or spoon or a whisk, give it all a good mix. You want to hydrate the yeast and dissolve any large sugar or salt crystals. Once you're happy with that, add the flour. We're not adding the butter yet, that will come in a minute. Now grab your scraper and start mixing the dough. Mix in the bowl until you don't see any more dry flour. Now tip it out on the table and start kneading. This dough is not very sticky, so we'll use a regular kneading method. What I like to do is press down and forwards with the heel on my right hand. Then using the fingers of my left hand, I fold the piece of dough under the heel on my right hand. Then turn and repeat. Once you've done this a few times, the motion will become fluent. You want to continue kneading the dough for 3 minutes. We want to get the gluten going before we add the butter. And if you'd like to learn more about adding fat to a dough, click the link in the top right corner. But the basic way to do it, you knead the dough until you get some sufficient gluten development. Now stretch the dough out and slap the butter right on top of it. Make sure the butter is soft, but not runny. Now this next part might not be pretty, but that's how you have to do it. Just squeeze the dough with your hands. Tear it, pull it, mash it up. There's no right or wrong here. All we're trying to do is combine the dough with the butter. Now scrape it all up and keep kneading. Just as we did before, same exact technique. And while at first it might seem a bit messy and sticky, once you keep doing it, it will start coming together. And 3 minutes later, the dough is formed. Beautiful. So a total of 6 minutes of kneading was sufficient for this dough. It's nice and smooth, and we're ready to ferment. Get it in your bowl and take the temperature. 25 to 26 degrees Celsius is what we're looking for. If your dough is warmer, it will take less fermentation time. If it's cooler, it might take longer. If this is about right, I'll cover it up and leave it to proof for 1 hour. It should puff up a little bit during the first hour. Now first proof done, we need to give it a fold. Folding the dough is quite easy. What you want to do is get out the bowl, place it on your table, smooth side down, then fold the edges over the middle, going around in a circle until you reach the point where you started. Then you'll flip it smooth side up again, tighten it against the table, and back in the bowl it goes. Folding benefits the dough in a number of ways. It will equalize the temperature, will create extra layers in gluten structure, and it will also help with degassing. If you want to learn more about folding, click the link in the top right corner. I have a full video on that. Once you've done your fold, cover your dough up and leave it to ferment for 1 more hour. Now it should really start puffing up. It has definitely doubled in size since we began. Now we're ready to cut it up in little pieces. You can use flour to prevent it from sticking, but it's no big deal if it does. We're going to cut it up anyway. Flatten the dough out a little bit, grab your scraper and cut it into strips. We want the dough pieces to be around 2.5 to 3 centimeters. That's about 1 inch. And don't worry if they're all regular sizes. That's how it should be. It doesn't matter. And once you've cut your dough up, get your loaf tin and your garlic butter. Make sure it's runny, but you don't want your butter to be hot. Otherwise the dough will start fermenting too quickly as it warms up. I would suggest using a fork for picking out the dough pieces out of the butter. That will prevent you from scooping up too much butter out of the bowl and into the tin and running out too early. This amount of butter is sufficient for this amount of dough. with a little bit left over to brush on when the loaf comes out the oven at the end. So once your dough is in the loaf tin, you start preheating your oven to 160 degrees Celsius with the fan on, and also preheat your pan if you're using one. Now at this point I realized I made a mistake. This loaf tin was leaking butter all over the place, so make sure you use a solid loaf tin. I make the mistake so you don't have to. Now cover up the loaf and leave to ferment for 1 hour. It should almost double in size, and as you can see it's puffing up beautifully. This garlic bread was so nice and airy, it's unbelievable. Now let's get this bad boy in the oven and watch the magic happen. It will take around 35 to 40 minutes. You want it to be golden brown all over. Using the cast iron skillet as a base helps cook the bottom of the loaf. Now if you are ever unsure of the doneness of your bread, and this works for any bread, just take your probe and poke it right into the center. If it reads more than 94 degrees Celsius, which is 200 Fahrenheit, it's ready. Now get the remaining garlic butter and brush it all over, so give it a nice shine. Let the loaf rest for 10 minutes before removing it. Enjoy it whilst it's still warm. And that's your garlic pull-apart bread. Quite simple, right? As always, if you have any questions or suggestions, write them down in comments. And subscribe to my channel for many more bread baking videos. I don't only show recipes, I also teach techniques and principles. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.